Dragon Age the Veilguard has its reviews out. It's sitting at an 84 on OpenCritic and Metacritic. And as I said in my last video, I don't think you should trust those reviews too much. And it's not because of the reviews that are there, but because of the reviews that aren't. EA has manipulated the review process to selectively exclude reviewers, to not give them the chance to play the game early and be there at embargo like all of the reviews that you see out right now. And there is a very good reason to believe that that's because they suspected they would be giving the game worse scores. And I'm very happy to see those reviewers standing up and talking about it. I think it's important that we know what's going on, that we understand why this is happening, what is motivating this, and a bit about how the review process works, because all of this directly harms you as a customer. It is companies going a little bit of a step beyond the usual access journalism and bending the rules just a bit more to make sure that there is a more manicured message out there in order to confuse and catch more people off guard, get them interested in the game when maybe otherwise they wouldn't, because critical pieces of information that certain people would focus on, probably reviewers that you like, reviewers like Wolfhard FPS, Luke Stevens, or Fextralife, aren't there to tell you about. In case it isn't obvious, I think that this is a really big deal. I'm not quite sure if this is a trend that we're going to see forming later on in this style specifically, in this new style of access journalism, but it worries me, and I want you to be informed. So hi, I'm Mug. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're not new here, welcome back. I normally ask you that if you enjoy the video to hit the like button, because that helps the video reach farther, gets it in front of more eyes. That is extra important this time around, because it is something that concerns all of us when it comes to pretty much any review of anything ever. So let's get into it. Now the facts are as follows. 3 content creators have called out EA for not sending them review codes to the game despite having reached an agreement previously that they would, and despite them having participated in the preview events for Dragon Age the Veilguard. On top of that, from multiple different places, we've heard different outlets also did not receive review codes, you know, traditional big outlets that assign reviews to different reviewers type of stuff. Now, the reason this gets very confusing is because Dragon Age the Veilguard had a massive preview event, the type that we don't really see very often anymore. It was an in-person preview event, which normally has to do with things like security or convenience or just the game not being playable outside of the specific builds with specific tools that they might have on local computers, and it helps them keep track of everything that's going on. But this sort of preview event, especially an on-site preview event, is incredibly expensive and complicated to put out. You're contacting dozens, sometimes hundreds of individuals. You are organizing their flights, you're paying for them, you're paying for their hotel accommodations and organizing them, you're paying for staff to be there to take care of them, to make sure that they are attended throughout an entire event. You are sometimes putting on a little bit more of a dog and pony show as well. So there's a ton of work beforehand to get everything working. And then there's also a ton of work afterwards with things like approval processes, which can be them manipulating stuff and doing access journalism, but other times it's just as simple as no spoilers getting out or something. Sometimes this is taken to very other extremes. I'm going to keep reminding people that Ubisoft flew out a ton of content creators and reviewers to Disneyland for a VIP treatment at Galaxy's Edge, where they also played Star Wars Outlaws for preview. But we all know where the real draw of the trip was. Come on. And this is the incredibly difficult and expensive part of it, because after you've put on a preview event like that, you come out of it with a giant list of individuals, of outlets that you've properly vetted, that you have seen in person, people who have already interacted with you. You've got basically an address book for this, and review codes tends to be a very simple process. You send out a key to the game, which allows you to play the game before launch, and you sign a very standard NDA, a very standard embargo agreement that says that you can publish your review. Sometimes there are exceptions, like to protect spoilers, really nothing regarding being positive or negative on the game. That's happened like twice in history and was shut down very promptly. And people just play the game, edit their reviews, and have it out all at one specific moment, which also benefits the company because it drums up a ton of attention online. It is the really easy part of it. Something like the preview event is the difficult part. So why would you invite people to the preview event hear their previews and very shortly after watching or reading their previews, exclude them from the review code list as EA did, which is basically stop responding to emails from certain creators and from certain outlets. Now look, this is important. Another creator that didn't get review access was ACG, and he very correctly points out that nobody is entitled to a review key, and he's very correct. And I don't think that there would be any fuss about this if some people just didn't get a review code. We would move on from it. They would say like, I don't know why I didn't, I'll do a review later. And the people who really value those opinions will probably even wait for those opinions to be out before making a final purchasing decision. And this is why I started with the preview event, because what I find strange is that they would invest money in exchange for preview videos, and then the technically free promotion of just giving these creators review codes afterwards, that's where they stopped. This isn't that they simply ignored certain creators or they got lost in the shuffle or whatever. This isn't just them being blacklisted or something. No, they are very clearly on a list because they flew out to California to do the preview, and then after their previews went live, like, oh no more please. And I think the reason is a bit complicated here. The initial assumption is the reviews from them they suspected would be bad, so they would rather not have them review it, or they believe that those reviews would do more damage than them saying we didn't get review codes, which I think is part of the equation. They didn't want certain people to review the game because they suspected it would bring their Metacritic score down, and we know game companies really care about that sort of stuff, so they want that banner up on Metacritic today with that big shiny 84 green numbers to convince passerbys, which is a ton of people, that hey, new Dragon Age is coming out, turns out it's good just at a glance. And so they excluded people they suspected might give it bad reviews. And that might seem obvious on paper, but I think it's way more insidious in this case. If all they wanted was to have an inflated review score, to have the Metacritic be higher so that at a glance everybody had this perception of, oh wow, Dragon Age is really good, maybe a redemption arc. They're aware that a lot of people don't like what they're showing of this game, and they were like, oh, maybe when they see glowing review scores from everybody, they'll change their mind and the general perception will be that it's positive. If that were the case, they could do stuff like exclude certain outlets, things like Edge Magazine, right? They famously don't give very high marks. Maybe they give a 7 as a high mark. So what do? You don't give them review access so that that initial impression is positive. But no, this is a step beyond. This is inviting everybody to the preview event, and once they have their previews out, once you have those opinions out there, you're selectively screening them and going like, ooh, this one seems like he's not gonna like the full game. From what he said in the preview, he's not gonna like what comes after. Don't send them review code. This is one step further in manipulation of really trying to trim out the most extreme outliers, the ones that they assess are a higher risk. And that hurts you as a customer because they're trying to silence valid criticism that exists to inform you better of your purchases. I also personally think that there is a component here that certain reviewers that may have expressed certain opinions were looking at parts of the game or were more concerned about certain parts of the game that they knew were going to be sticking points for them. Reviewers that were going to focus more than others on certain parts of the game because that's what they care about and probably what their audience cares about. So it's extra important information. So they didn't want certain creators that were going to focus on those things playing the game because obviously it's not just that the review would be bad because some of these reviewers aren't even present on Metacritic or OpenCritic. It's that they would have been telling their audience, hey, the thing that you care about the most, it's not here. And that's the explanation that I see for very deliberately selecting which reviewers don't get review code when pretty much everybody else and their mother got it. And you should be aware of that. As we keep trending more in a direction where people are seeking out specific content creators because they represent their interests better than others, because we are better aligned with them in what we agree and disagree with on games, trying to silence those people for watching out for the customer, for watching out for their audience, is really creepy, and it seems very specifically targeted. And let me be clear here, this is not 100% confirmed, but if I had to place money on stuff, this is not an issue of BioWare. I don't think BioWare has much say here. This is marketing and press at EA, not BioWare. BioWare has already had its disputes with EA over creative disagreements with Dragon Age. They wanted this game to be a live service, and BioWare said no. We know BioWare hated the idea of that initial trailer for the Veilguard, but EA wanted it. So I definitely think that they're pulling the strings here. That's not to say BioWare is a saint, because they made this game and it seems to have a lot of problems, especially if you're a fan of Dragon Age. Let's let that simmer there for just a second. But here on this channel, I like to work with evidence, and if I do speculate, make it very clear that it is speculation. So them's the breaks. And I hope everything that I've just said here adds context to the situation and explains why it's scary that now access journalism, which has been around for such a long time, is now evolving into a, we're going to use you for a preview, and if we don't like your preview or we think it's not going to fit with our narrative, instead of allowing you to inform the best as possible your audience, to put your opinion out there, to have customers be informed, we're going to then silence you afterwards, is a scary thought. And the next clarification here is, I don't think this is a very specific conspiracy of some sort. I think that this is just risk management, a very horrible version of it from EA, because plenty of reviews have come out that are extremely negative. For example, the preview by SkillUp was very positive. It was done by Austin, who is new to the Dragon Age series. He was the one who flew out and played the game, and he had very positive things to say about it. And the final review, Ralph's review, is incredibly negative. So it's not like there was a weird pre-approval process for reviews or anything like that. It's really just who they felt was more likely for it, and they excluded them. I think that it's very simply that they suspected certain voices, they could bet on them being negative, and they chose to not let them be heard. And I don't like it. And you should be informed when companies are doing this, and you should feel like they don't want you to know all of the details. Now, finally, a couple of clarifications on what this means for you. I've seen a lot of people online, to everybody who has talked about this, that, oh, look at them, poor entitled reviewers complaining that they didn't get early access to a game. Why don't they just pay for it like everybody else? And I don't know if this needs to be said, but the point of reviewers receiving early access to games is not for their benefit, it's for yours, especially today. I think there was an argument in the past that if you weren't there day one reviewing a game, you weren't going to get views, but I think that's changed a lot now. Reviewers that people trust very much on certain genres, on certain franchises, or just trust their opinion very much in general, people will wait for their favorite reviewer's review. All of this is to say that while review codes can be very nice for reviewers to have, and it can help a channel or it can help an outlet, it's not that big of a deal as it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Instead, for me, the biggest benefit that there is in reviewers getting their reviews out 3 days before the game is for sale is to better inform you. It's kind of this duty to try and inform customers, to inform their audiences to the best of their ability if a game is going to be worth it for them, if it's worth their time and money. So make no mistake that these sorts of practices of withholding review codes from certain specific selected outlets and creators really only harms you. It harms customers who are interested in knowing more about this before investing in it, and that ultimately also hurts the company at the end of the day. It is a huge mess, and I don't like it. And while we don't have all of the information to know exactly what went down, why things are happening, or what the ultimate goal with all of it really is, I can only speculate on it. What I can tell you is something that I've said many times before, plenty of people have said. What is most valuable right now is that you know who is reviewing a game, and that you choose to listen to people that you are aligned with. People who like the same games you like and dislike the same games you dislike. People whose opinions you can trust. When it comes to bigger outlets, something like IGN, you know, we make a lot of jokes about IGN and the 7 out of 10 and all of that, but come on. They have like 30 different reviewers. Unfortunately, if you care, you have to know who is reviewing the game for IGN. When it comes to specific channels, it's much easier. There's a specific person. It's normally one person or a small group of people that are reviewing, and you know who to trust, but maybe that Metacritic score isn't as important anymore because everything regarding game reviews has always been built on a very shaky foundation, and that's getting eroded even more day after day right now. Choose carefully who you listen to, choose carefully who you trust. And if you really trust certain creators, like if you really trust Wolfhard FPS, or you really trust Luke Stevens or Fextra Life, you shouldn't trust what EA's marketing decided to do with Dragon Age of the Veilguard. And as I think is usual and especially necessary in this case, I said Dragon Age of the Veilguard might not be a bad game. I think it'll be fine, but I think it's going to be very divisive all across the board for all sorts of reasons. Go check out people who absolutely hate it, and go check out the people who loved it. Go check out the people in between if you want to know if it's worth your 60 hours of time. I know that in the case of you guys, a lot of you watching this channel, you don't want it, you don't like it, and you want to see BioWare burn, and that's fine. Vote with your wallet. At the end of the day, I'm still going to give my opinion as unbiased as possible, well articulated as best as I can, in an informative and hopefully entertaining manner. But if you are curious about it, and if you're curious about games in the future, I think this is an important reminder that you shouldn't care about the Metacritic. I have no reason to believe that any of the reviews out there are lying. I think that just as expected, the game is going to be divisive, and the reviews show that. There's a lot of very positive reviews and a lot of very negative reviews because it's divisive. But EA didn't want that idea to be out there. And so they tried to minimize risk. They tried to cut out certain content creators that they thought were going to be on the negative spectrum to try and have as many of the positive sides of this divisive game out there and manipulate your perception of it, instead of you being properly informed that this game, some people are going to love it, some people are going to enjoy it, and other people are not going to. You should listen to the people you trust. You should find other sources. I don't care if that's user reviews or Steam reviews or creators. Everything has its pros and cons. Just make sure that it fits for you, and don't let the big marketing machine manipulate from behind the scenes the possible perception you have of something. An informed customer is a smart customer. Be smart with your time, your money. I've been Mug. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you want more from me, news, reviews, essays, retrospectives, subscribe. I love video games, so I make a ton of videos about them. It's that simple. A very special thanks to the patrons up on the $1 wall. It's called that way because there's only one tier, $1, but they support everything that I do. I'm incredibly grateful. As you can see, the wall is full and I haven't redesigned it yet. I'm working on it. Thank you so much for filling up the wall. We're on to redesign number 3. Let's see what I come up with. I know this video is different from what I usually make, much more of just a talking head commentary video instead of a more scripted essay type stuff. Although I try and make those feel like it's just talking, but you know, but I really care about this and it's important. So I hope it doesn't bother you guys too much. And as always, I'll see you again very soon.